Hey Star Trek fans, Dan Gunther here, bringing you my reaction and review to the latest episode of Star Trek Discovery, Season 2, Episode 10, The Red Angel. The episode begins with a funeral for Lieutenant Commander Ariam, who sacrificed herself for the ship and the mission at the end of the previous week's episode. This was a really nice, touching scene. A lot of the characters give kind of a bit of a eulogy and what this character meant to them. It's kind of nice in a series and a season that's been sparse with quiet personal moments that this is kind of the first of many we get in this episode, which is nice. It gives this series and these characters a chance to breathe a bit. This is one thing that I think this episode had in common with the previous episode, is there's more quiet character moments, more in this episode than in any other episode though. So for example, throughout this episode we get a lot of one-on-one character moments that kind of contribute to this nice, more quiet feeling episode. Non and Burnham is one such example. Non, of course, was responsible for opening the airlock that ultimately killed Ariam in the last episode. And there's this nice little moment, and I wouldn't expect a show like Discovery, the way it's been going, to take the time to address this, but she takes the time and pulls Burnham aside and talks a bit about what was said at the funeral service and her feelings with regards to the role that she played in that. And that was just a really nice touch. I really appreciated that. And Rachel Ancherl, I think, is a great addition to the show, and I'm loving that we're seeing more of Commander Non. Early in the episode, we get the revelation that the Red Angel is Michael Burnham. And I'm really wondering at this point how many people ran straight to the internet and kind of wrote, "Oh, I knew it." There were a few posts on Facebook, some people kind of doing the equivalent of live tweeting their reactions to this episode, and a lot of those, "Oh, I knew it was Burnham. I knew it was Burnham." And then, of course, we get a different revelation at the end of the episode, which I will certainly get to. But it was really neat that they played with our expectations like that and kind of turn them on their head. So that was really appreciated. Speaking of quiet moments between characters, there's another great one between Burnham and Ash Tyler. Now, in the course of this episode, they realize that they need to capture the Red Angel, and to do so, they kind of figure out that it appears whenever Burnham is in danger. And at this point, they, of course, still think the Red Angel is Burnham. So, they're basically going to threaten Burnham's life and push her right to the brink of dying in order to capture the Red Angel. And this really feeds into Burnham's kind of martyr complex. She's got this kind of self-sacrifice bent that gets commented on both in this episode and in the last episode. And this is something that she's always kind of dealt with. She believes herself to be responsible for the death of her parents. She believes herself to be responsible for the bombing of the Learning Academy on Vulcan, for her parents dying because they stayed behind longer at Doktari Alpha when the Klingons attacked. And, all these things that she kind of takes on herself, and that kind of ultimately comes to a head in this episode when she's literally going to sacrifice herself for the good of this mission. And there's this great scene, like I mentioned, between her and Ash Tyler, where we get kind of a break in that facade of bravery and steadfastness. And she's scared. And it's really cool to see Burnham this vulnerable. She's quite literally terrified and seeks comfort from Ash, and it's just a really lovely scene that kind of takes everything that those two characters have gone through over the past two seasons, culminating in this really nice moment between them. And there's all the suspicions of Ash because he's involved with Section 31 and all of the other things that have gone on with his character, but to kind of just see them laid bare and the two of them confronting the latent feelings that they do have for each other there, and the comfort that he's able to give her, I think was really nice to see. This episode seems to be marked with these kind of one-on-one moments, because there's another one where Burnham confronts Leland, and this is an interesting scene because we have found out in a previous episode that Leland is responsible for Burnham's parents' death, and we get the details of that in this episode. They were secretly working for Section 31. I mean, who isn't these days? And but they were working on this suit that is what the Red Angel suit is. And they were there under the orders of Leland, and basically some of the tech that they used to go into the suit they stole from the Klingons, and the Klingons traced it back to Daktari Alpha. So it was Leland who put Burnham's parents in danger. And the scene where he admits this to Burnham, we've seen Leland before, where he kind of has this bit of vulnerability to him, but the implication has been in the past that it was an act, like when he's assuring Burnham that they'll look after Spock, and we find out that no, they weren't going to do that. They were going to, rip apart his mind, kind of thing. In this scene, I feel like we're actually getting a little bit of earnestness from Leland. He's actually ashamed of the slip up that led to Burnham's parents' death, and there's just a little bit of vulnerability there, which was really nice to see. And of course, a really cathartic moment when Burnham decks Leland. A little bit of wish fulfillment there, but it was still satisfying for sure. This moment also comes up again in another one of these great two-person scenes where Burnham and Spock talk in the gym, and Spock makes a comment that he would have liked to have seen Burnham punch out Leland, which was a nice little touch. I have to say, Ethan Peck is just nailing Spock's mannerisms and performance here. I'm really buying him as Spock in a way that I never thought I would, and I have to admit, I'm very genuinely surprised by his portrayal. I've gone on the record as saying, Leonard Nimoy is Spock. No one will ever equal his performance, but darn it if Ethan Peck doesn't come pretty darn close. I'm really impressed with him. So yeah, this scene between him and Burnham, really great scene. There's almost a bit of reconciliation between them, and we finally see them kind of interacting and getting over this antagonism they've had between each other over the course of the last season. There's a lot of really great bits of that in the episode leading up to this. Spock gets some good, burns in on Burnham, but here we finally see them kind of reconcile a bit, which was really nice to see. I also want to talk a little bit about Philippa Georgiou, the mirror Georgiou, and her kind of role in this episode. This is an interesting character, more multifaceted than I was initially giving her credit for. It's very obvious that she cares deeply for Burnham, and there's this really complicated relationship there because, of course, Burnham has this complicated relationship with the prime Georgiou, who she saw as a mother figure, and then the mirror Georgiou actually did raise Michael Burnham as her daughter. So, like, each of them know that they're not each other's counterparts, but they kind of can't help but have this closeness between them, which is a really neat dynamic for them to play. There's some really earnest emotions that come through from Georgiou in this, which are really surprising. I also have to talk a little bit about a scene between Georgiou and Stamets, and also Culber and Tilly are there as well in the Spore Drive Bay. And this is a really bizarre scene, but almost in a way it seems to be like Georgiou kind of trying to get Stamets and Culber back together in her own kind of weird, twisted way, which, makes everybody really uncomfortable, and some really great reactions, especially by Tilly, to what's going on in that scene. It's unsettling. It kind of makes you really want to question things, but I think that's very much intentional. And I really enjoyed that scene on a number of levels. We get to hear the word gay and the word pansexual in Star Trek. That's never happened before, as far as I know. So it's pretty cool. So I talked a little bit about the role that Leland played in Burnham's death. What we learned from this episode is that the Red Angel suit is actually Section 31 tech that Burnham's parents were apparently working on. Now, this brings me to my first real complaint in this episode, and it kind of bugged me. The entire couple of episodes before were predicated on the belief that the Red Angel came from the future because this tech is so amazing and advanced, which, the logic of that by itself is already a little suspect. Just because something is really advanced, it has to come from the future, which seemed to be the conclusion they were drawing, which never really made sense to me. Different aliens can have different technology levels. It could originate from somewhere else. So that never really made sense. But in addition to that, in this episode, we now learn that the tech isn't even from the future. It's actually from 30 years in the past, and it's, Section 31 secret project tech. Which negates the conclusions they drew in the previous episodes, unless, you know, there's something that haven't been revealed yet. They do say that it's still coming from the future and bringing the destructive AI from the future with it. So there might be something there that we just haven't been privy to yet. But it just seems weird to me that, like, oh, it actually turns out to be something that Section 31 worked on, you know, years ago. I don't know, that seemed really odd to me. So basically, they kind of come to the conclusion that the Red Angel's travels through time is what's bringing the AI with it to threaten the past and all that sort of thing. So they decide that they have to capture the Red Angel, and they set up this trap, like I mentioned, to capture her. And they manage to do so. Before that happens, though, there's this amazing scene, and Burnham's self-sacrifice again comes into play here, where she literally dies in order to bring this thing here, and Spock is refusing to let anybody try and stop that from happening. He's willing to push this right to the very end. There's a little bit of dark humor in me kind of wonders how that scene would have gone if they were wrong, and Spock's holding them all at phaser point saying don't interfere, and Burnham dies, and then just nothing happens. The Red Angel doesn't show up, and Spock's like, well, damn. But thankfully, of course, that doesn't happen. The Red Angel does show up. They do manage to capture her, and the suit opens, and we get the major reveal at the end of the episode when, you know, this figure kind of falls out of it and looks up at Burnham, and Burnham looks down at her, and the last word of the episode is, Mom? And, you know, interesting. Not a lot of people guessed that. I do have to give some kudos to a few people out there who did. Definitely a few comments in some of my previous videos. Some people did suspect that Burnham's mom or her parents would be the Red Angel. Irish Trekkie as well tweeted that he thought it was her mother a few days before the episode aired. So good call on that. That's pretty cool. But I do have to say, as far as plot twists go, this isn't one that a lot of people sussed out. There were certainly a ton of theories out there, but there was nobody like overwhelmingly on the side of it being Burnham's mom. So that's exciting. I'm glad that, you know, they were able to do things a little bit more unexpected this season, rather than, you know, the plot twists that, although they were clever last year, a lot of people figured them out. And, you know, that's more a function of so many people on so many computers all giving their thoughts and kind of the hive mind coming out with things. But this season, it was just able to be a little bit more unpredictable, and I really liked that. So like I said, I really enjoyed this episode. I think it was nice to have some of those more quiet moments, like I mentioned, but really curious to see where it goes from here. What role is Burnham's mom going to play in this? And of course, we have some Section 31 AI shenanigans with Leland at the end of this episode. Is he dead? Is he being taken over by the artificial intelligence? What's going on there? I'm really curious. I have no idea what that's about. So I've kind of left some speculation on that, maybe to you guys in the comments, because I'm going to be quite honest. I didn't quite know what to make of that scene where he gets the, you know, stabbed in the eye by the little retinal scanner thing he was looking in, or whatever the heck that was. I'm kind of confused on that, so I think that's going to require a lot of rewatching from me. But I want to hear your guys' theories. What's going on there? What's going on with the rest of the episode? We do know that there is still something linking Burnham to the Red Angel, and, you know, they believe that it 100% was Burnham. So is she going to take up the mantle of the Red Angel at some point in the future, and that will fulfill that part of what we learned? I don't know, but either way, 4 episodes left. I think we're in for a pretty fun ride through to the end of the season. Like I said, let me know in your thoughts below. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks especially to the Patreon supporters for all their help. I really do appreciate it. I'll see you all in the next video, and until next time, maybe avoid looking into any retinal scanners or anything you have to put your eye up to. I don't like that.